Welcome to the Global Conversation with our guest, Mário Centeno. Portugal's finance minister is known for helping to transform an ugly duckling country into a swan that has one of the highest rates of growth in the European Union. Mr. Centeno has been president of the Eurogroup since January and promises to create a consensus to reform the Eurozone. Mr. Eurogroup President, thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Is the example of Portugal and this new narrative of less austerity a given, or do you still have to work hard to convince more orthodox countries, such as the Netherlands, Finland, Germany?
Portugal is a success in Europe. Many of my economist friends call it the darling of Europe. Growth is strong and unemployment is shrinking, an area we are leading in Europe. Portugal has always been committed to respecting the norms, but with a different interpretation of the ways in which these rules can be applied. This was a novelty that brought even more attention to our example.
As Eurogroup President, you've spoken a lot about the current election cycle, for example, in France and the Netherlands. We have a situation in Germany that's still unresolved. If there is a coalition government between the CDU and the SPD, and the finance portfolio goes to Olaf Scholz from the centre-left SPD, do you think that will usher in a period of less austerity? This is a vision which has also been driven by France's President Macron, who's advocating greater European solidarity and greater public investment.
We have been working very constructively with the German government since I became Eurogroup President. The resumption of the process to complete the banking union is very important. It is benefiting from the excellent economic situation across Europe at the moment, and also from the political cycle that you referred to. I don't think there will be any doubts about the compromise that Germany will be bringing to this process during this new phase.
So let's talk about Eurozone reform. It has two very clear priorities: to complete the banking union and to reform the European stability mechanism. In the case of the banks, are countries really willing to share the risk and create a European deposit insurance so that in the event of a new crisis, taxpayers will be protected?
This reform is very important to assure European citizens that, in the event of the next crisis, our financial system is prepared, is better equipped and more robust. For this, we need to complete the banking union, to ensure we have all the means, all the necessary instruments. Living in a union, it is always, as we know in our daily lives, it's always necessary to reinforce the bonds of trust and mutual guarantees that are given in each moment. I think it's important to generate consensus around institutions and offer solutions that respond to the wishes and anxieties we all have in Europe at the moment.
The truth is that SMEs, citizens, they continue to complain about how this fails to translate in the real economy. I mean, for things such as more credit for entrepreneurs, improving the quality of life, creating jobs.
To show you what I mean, I'll give the example of Portugal. But this is replicated in other European countries. Small and medium-sized companies have a financing gap in Portugal compared to similar European companies, which is the lowest since the beginning of the century. This means we have recovered immensely from what has been a very traumatic process that we suffered during the crisis. Now in Portugal, small and medium-sized enterprises and good investment projects are financed in the short term at rates lower than 1%.
I wanted to talk to you about Greece. It's a country where things are still difficult, where they still have yet to turn this page to close this chapter. Pierre Moscovici, the European Commissioner for Economic and Financial Affairs, is optimistic. You seem to be as well. Can Greece exit its assistance programme by this summer?
They took a gamble and it will succeed. We're optimistic. What is more important right now is to give the Greek government and the Greek authorities and society a sense of ownership for their future. I attach great importance to this issue. As we go through a transition between political and electoral cycles in Greece, it's very important that the next government keeps that feeling of ownership about the whole process, because it's a very difficult process.
I'd like to speak about the budget. The European Commission is preparing the EU budget for 2020 to 2026, when the UK will no longer be a major contributor. The Portuguese government has proposed 3 new taxes: in the energy sector for companies that pollute a lot, for international financial transactions, and one for digital platforms. Do you think that these ideas, already strongly supported by southern countries, will be of interest to other European partners in order to bring in new revenue?
The support for this kind of funding makes perfect sense in the context of the European budget. If Europeans feel closer to the issues regarding the way budgets are funded and have a better understanding of these sources of funding, that will surely help Europe with its greatest challenge: to bring citizens closer to the European project. The so-called cause-effect nexus will be more visible and easier to understand. There are new challenges in Europe today: security, defence, migration, the demographic challenges we face in Europe. They are universal to almost every society and every European country. And in many cases, they can be dealt better with at the European level.
Senhor Presidente do Eurogroup, muito obrigada.
Obrigado.